Welcome back to the Patriot Party, where truth, transparency, and constitutional principles come before politics. The Patriot Party movement is focused on re-empowering we the people, restoring accountability, and putting America first through honest conversations and real solutions. Today's guest brings a perspective shaped by tyranny, freedom, war zones, and service to this country. Joining us today is Mahtab Farid, an award-winning international journalist, U.S. diplomat, and national security analyst, born in Tehran during the Islamic Revolution and raised during war and censorship. Mahtab experienced authoritarianism firsthand before immigrating to the United States as a teenager. She went on to report from conflict zones, cover U.S.-Iran relations and Middle East security issues, and later served as a public diplomacy officer during the U.S.-Afghanistan war, earning the Secretary's Expeditionary Service Award. She is also the author of Serving Without a Uniform, Reporting Truth in Defense of Freedom, a powerful story about gratitude, service, and defending American freedom. Mahtab, thank you for joining the Patriot Party.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you were born in Tehran during the Islamic Revolution and the Iran-Iraq War. What did living under censorship and tyranny teach you about the true value of freedom?
Well, I was 9 years old when I came back from school and I saw some horror pictures on the TV screen when the U.S. diplomats were being held hostage. So at that point, I knew my parents loved America. We loved America. I was watching the American cartoons. I was fascinated with the American culture. So I knew that wasn't the story. You know, what the government was doing was not representing the people. So I made a vow at that age to grow up and become a reporter and to tell the truth and say what was going on. And then later on, I came to America. I became a reporter. Then I saw how others were misrepresenting United States and saying things about America that weren't true. So I felt like I was caught between the two worlds of people. Whether you are in Tehran or Washington, there are definitely disinformation and misinformation being spread.
Absolutely. And that is such an inspirational story. I'll tell you what, that is a great, great story. So, when you came to the United States as a teenager or at 9 years old, what stood out most to you about America? And when did you first realize you wanted to serve this country?
Well, I was actually 9 when the revolution happened. I grew
Okay.
up through the Iran Iraq war. So when we migrated with my family to America, we found refuge in America. My father was a successful businessman. He had a textile factory and he was doing really well, but he started from scratch. We all started from the beginning. We went through the legal procedures of becoming a citizen and we worked hard. We never took a dime from the American government. We contributed to the America. And I had the chance to live the dream of becoming a reporter. And during Obama's administration, when I learned they were taking civilian surge, I felt like maybe this is my time to step in and to pay back to America. So I quit my job as a reporter and I volunteered to go to Afghanistan to serve.
Wow. Wow. Many in the Patriot Party movement believe Americans need to rediscover what makes this country exceptional. And your journey really puts that into real perspective.
I think one of the reasons this book is not about, oh my God, I'm so good, or I wanted to say how good I am. I really was hoping to tell the story, to share that a lot of people around the world are smart. There are so many smart people in Syria, in Yemen, in Lebanon, and we only see them as hostage takers, militia groups, proxies. But when they didn't have the chance we have in this country, so the same child you see, it's a member of a proxy group. If he was given a chance to come to America, he probably would have been a doctor and that's the difference. That's why it makes America great because we have the platform, we have the foundation, we had the founding fathers that Iran, Lebanon, and Syria didn't have. They didn't have Jeffersons and Lincolns. So that's why makes this America great. And if you don't mind, I made a special tribute to this young Marine in
Uh-huh.
my book. He was at the age of 22 when he wrote this letter to his mom before he was killed in Helmand, Afghanistan. And I wanted, actually, his letter inspired me to write because the purity of his purpose for serving. And this is the story that's not being told in America, and I wish more news outlets would cover this. That those people who go and serve, those young people, they have such purity in their purpose that's unbelievable. And whenever you have time, because it's a little bit emotional, his letter, I don't want to um, get off topic, but I want to read his letter to your audience.
Well, I'm just going to add something in real quick, and then I'll let you read the letter. I was going to say something in combination with what you were saying. You mentioned Lebanon, and you mentioned smart people and all that kind of stuff. And it's funny because my great grandmother came over in 1900 at 13 with $1 silver in her pocket, and her 7-year-old sister holding on to her pocket, from Lebanon, because I'm half Lebanese, and her name is on Ellis Island Wall.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, go ahead with the letter. Go ahead with the letter. Everybody, please, full attention for what she's going to say, because it's obviously very important and inspirational.
It's on page 5 of my book, and I'm going to read this. During my time in Afghanistan, I met countless courageous souls whose sacrifices remain in my heart. Their stories of service, resilience, and quiet heroism deserve to be told. General John Allen and William letters during a Memorial Day ceremony in Kabul, honoring all those who gave their lives in service. I include Sergeant Stacy's letter here exactly as he wrote it. His voice of clarity, conviction, and compassion should never be forgotten. Sergeant Stacy wrote, quote, "My death did not change the world. It may be tough for you to justify its meaning at all, but there is a greater meaning to it. Perhaps I didn't change the world. Perhaps there is still injustice in the world, but there will be a child who will live because men left the security they enjoyed in their home country to come to his. And this child will learn in the new schools that have been built. He will walk his streets, not worried about whether or not his leader's henchmen are going to come and kidnap him. He will grow into a fine man who will pursue every opportunity his heart could desire. He will have the gift of freedom, which I have enjoyed for so long. If my life is the safety of a child who will one day change this world, then I know that it was all worth it. Simplify means always faithful to God, country, and corpse, always faithful to the principles and beliefs that guided me into the service. And on that day in October, when I placed my hand on a Bible and swore to defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, I meant it. Sergeant Stacy's words live on, reminding us that even in loss, there can be light, especially when that light is passed on to a child who dares to dream.
Wow. You're gonna miss my eyes. Wow, that's really powerful, very powerful. I hope everyone out there took the time to pay attention and listen to that. That's very, very powerful, and obviously very inspirational for you to start your journey behind this. It being the catalyst to starting this journey.
Absolutely, because he talks about a dream, and I also mentioned that I was so fortunate to be able to come here to America and live my dream, and a lot of people around the world do not get to live their dreams, including those, the children of those terrorists or the militia groups or the proxies in the region that we see.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, I'm gonna ask you another question. You ready?
Yes.
Okay. You said your book is fundamentally about America first. As someone who lived under tyranny before becoming an American citizen, what does America first truly mean to you?
America first means paying attention to ourselves first, and who people in our group, people in our community, people in our society, and serving each other first. I know there is a lot of bad things in the world, but and I know America is the leader as far as democratic values, but we have to pay attention to what's happening here before we can pay attention abroad. And I understand there are some national security reasons that we have to get engaged in the conflicts we don't want to engage, but we can simply police the world. So I'm not going to make any political comments to say who's right or who's wrong, or which war is justified or not justified. But I don't think, Sergeant Stacy's story, you can see the purity of his purpose. When someone goes and fights with this purity of purpose, America is responsible. So he lost his life. So we have to see if his life is justified or many like his life.
It sounds like it sounds like you're saying that you align with what we say here, because at the Patriot Party we say America first, not America only, because America leads by example.
Exactly. Exactly. And my point is not to, not to get engaged or be a unilateral country, but I think we have to sort of pace ourselves as far as, paying attention most to us than others, and taking this citizenship more seriously, because I mentioned in the book, when I became a US citizen, I felt a sense of responsibility. So when 9/11 happened, um, I was um, I was a reporter, and I wanted to make sure we told this story, because my my motherland was attacked, Iran, during Iran-Iraq war. Then I came to America, and America was under attack. And so my new homeland was under attack, and I felt a sense of responsibility. And now when I see all this stuff on the news, that I should have compassion to pay for some illegals' health insurance, and if I don't, then I'm a heartless woman. I'm not, because I see a lot of. We had a veteran Navy member on the team that came back. She checked into a homeless shelter because her boyfriend left her, and she had a child, and she had some PTSD. She couldn't hold a job. So, she was the person that I served with. And despite all the help the group tried to give her, but government was not there for her. So that's why when we say America first, it doesn't mean being selfish, but it means paying attention to the people who serve America.
And I think a lot of times things get twisted because of the way, one, different channels of the media portray things depending on what the agenda is, who they line up with, which kind of twists things. You get in those echo chambers. And two, everything's party politics. And a lot of times, you made a statement a minute ago about people saying, well, I'm an awful person if I do that. Most rational people are not going to say that. But unfortunately, the irrational, the percent or 2% that are way out, whichever direction, left, right, a lot of times they have the loudest voices, and the media really pushes that mess because, I think there's order and chaos, and they don't want us to structure together as we the people and work cohesively. They want to keep us broken so everybody stays in power the way it is.
I agree. I think sometimes the louder people are, the people listen to them more. And sometimes I wonder why some really odd person would have millions of followers. That means those are the voices that are being heard, unfortunately.
And what really got me, a few months ago, several months ago, it was all over the media, violent leftists and this rightist and everything was so split. And I went out to see my daughter in California, San Francisco, outside of it. And she set up at this art festival, and I'm talking to all these artists, California artists. I mean, they're liberal, but we're talking back and forth, and I'm telling them about the Patriot Party and everything, and they're getting in with it, and they're like, I don't understand why we just can't go back to, if we can't agree, we just agree to disagree. And I'm like, well, that's rational. That's what I've been saying. There's not as big a rift in between everybody as what's being betrayed.
I agree. And I tell you something funny. Years ago, I remember I was standing in a food line, and I met a Palestinian lady who was behind me, and I overheard their conversation. They were having some conversation, and she was telling her friend, "Look, I can't believe America. The rift between Israel and Palestine is bigger in Washington than it actually is in Palestine, because in Palestine we like to talk to each other, we do business with each other, we go to the border, we eat at each other's restaurant. So I don't understand this huge rift in DC." So that could tell you something. um
Well, and it also tells me, there is a big disconnect in DC and regular life as well. There's a huge DC doesn't run like we have a location in DC, and we have a full-time policy strategist, constitutional lawyer, and advocate for any kind of AI assisted legislation that we come out with our technology. Right now, he's pushing a healthcare reform, the only option that's been stress tested to take over Obamacare, save the American people $2 trillion a year, and create generational wealth. If you stay healthy, you get wealthy, no matter what your income range. And yeah, he's got it in, like, I think the top three bills that Thune and Johnson are considering to replace Obamacare. But yeah, it's a different beast there. It's not like other cities in the United States, and it's so disconnected. That's one of the reasons that I just, and I know this is impractical because it won't ever happen if it's being voted on by the people that it will affect. But I think that's one of the big reasons why it was never in the spirit of the Constitution to have these lifetime politicians that become dinosaurs and disassociated from the American people. At very least, they should only be able to run for so long, and then they have to go live again for so long with the American people, so there's not a disconnect there.
I agree, and I just don't understand why some of these people are there forever. I mean, they serve like senators 6 terms, like 36 years in Congress. Our founding fathers wanted us to serve, but to bring our own expertise to the government, not to come and make a family business out of the government, and bring our kids and grandkids to become the next leaders, which tends to be what's going on. And I think one of the biggest, and I think there are a lot of actually congressional members who would agree with both of us that there needs to be a reform on how many years you could serve.
Well, we've got a plan, but it's going to take 5 to 10 years. It's going to be strategic, and we've got a plan for it. We've already come up with a strategy, but that's to come. Actions speak louder than words. We're not even going to talk about that. That's pie in the sky. So, your story is rooted in gratitude towards the country that gave you freedom. What do you think gratitude like is missing from today's civic culture, and why is it essential to national unity?
It's essential because if you travel outside of here and see the basic freedom that people don't have. I mean, I mentioned in my book, like when the revolution happened, we couldn't wear what we wanted to wear. You couldn't listen to the music, pop music. You couldn't have loud music if you had a party. I mean, you could not have, like, you couldn't read every book. You couldn't see any movie. Everything was restricted. So if you go to the region or to other countries, even some of the European countries, you see, we have it pretty good. If you work hard, if you're a good person, and if you don't, bother anyone, you can really make it big in this country. But the same person, even if you're in Europe, if you're an expert and you work there for 20 years, there's only so much you could build and become. But all those people come here and they make an empire for themselves. So that's why we need to be grateful. But people work hard. I mean, we talk about Sergeant Stacy, then we talk about other people contribute to science, technology, all these Steve Jobs. It's not Hollywood. These guys work very, very hard to build the country that we have. And that's why we need to be grateful.
Absolutely. And it doesn't really matter. I mean, if you live in Ukraine, the Ukrainian school systems should be teaching Ukrainian exceptionalism. Same with America, because that I think that instills some patriotism from an early age. You got to be proud of your country to be patriotic. You're not going to be patriotic if you don't like your country. So there that American exceptionalism I think is what's missing. And we're actually partnered up with a nonprofit, the American Institute for Civic Leadership, and they are pushing out a really great curriculum right now across the school systems for middle and high school that brings in it's AI enhanced. So the kids use AI as a assistant, and the teacher is the coach, and it allows each kid to move at about 10 times their regular pace, but it's their pace. It's not anybody else's pace. It's their pace, but it's 10 times their regular pace. And what we're doing is we're reintroducing civil discourse. So it's also teaching them how to think constitutionally. So they'll be given different different sides to take on different issues, and one side will have to debate from the living document, the living constitution, and the other side will have to debate from the originalist, the conservative side, and it can start resonating with them. There'll be no shouting, no cursing, no getting mad, and if it can start resonating whatever resonates best with their beliefs at an early age, and get them thinking constitutionally from the beginning.
Yeah, but I also at the same time I feel so sad for our kids right now because we should be the one to lead by example. And look at what's going on. I mean, Trump was booted out of Twitter at the time. So we were talking about Constitution, having the freedom to say what we want to say, practice the religion we want, and own guns. But then in reality, that's not being practiced. I mean, if you say something against like so-called some popular or unpopular view, then your YouTube channel is all of a sudden deleted, or you're reported on Facebook. So how do we?
I lost a YouTube channel with 5,000 subscribers before I started this podcast. I had just started a YouTube channel and I was growing exponentially. I mean, I was growing by about 2,500 a month, getting about 1.5 million views a month. I was going, I mean, for a new channel, it was going quick. And then I got shadow banned, and nobody else joined my channel for 8 months, no matter what I did. I did everything I was doing before, and nobody would join. Actually, I was losing people. And finally, I just shut the channel down. They kept violating me. I think I put up a video about COVID, but it had a video like the information was from the Florida Surgeon General, so it was on the news. But they still hit me for a shadow ban, or I would have the Senate chamber video up where Hunter Biden said Joe Biden was the big guy, and they hit me for misinformation. I'm like, I got the video from the news.
I understand. So it's a confusing times. I think that's why, like you said, having a good, honest discussion and definitely education really would help. And one clarification I want to make for your listeners too: when we talk about American exceptionalism, people think you're wearing an American flag around. Because I've been told that. I remember I came back from Afghanistan, and I confronted my colleagues at VOA. I said, you guys, we've been at war for 20 years. You guys have not had one episode on reconstruction efforts on our troops. So I went I went on a show, and we did a show discussing what our troops are doing, our reconstruction efforts. Then after I came out, one of the producers, like leading producers, looked at me and he said, "Congratulations on being the spokesperson for DOD." And I'm like, no, you are an American and you're a voice of America. We're just talking about a news that's been going on for 20 years that you have not reported on.
Yeah, that's a very narrow perspective, because we have a lot of veterans and stuff that once you come up, you're not. I mean, no, I don't like that perspective at all.
Yeah, so but that's like when you talk about America, people think, oh, you're just being a conservative, a gun lover, like this. You're trying to take away from everybody, and it's all about you. No, it's not all about us or being selfish. It's about being protective of our rights and our values.
That's right, and being protective of what makes us different than any other country in the world, our Constitution.
Yes.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so you mentioned that current U.S. Iran unrest is one of your areas of expertise. From your perspective, what is the American public most misunderstood or not being told about the situation right now?
Um, I think the most misunderstood concept is Iran is like any other country in the region. Most young Iranians and most Iranians in Iran, they are very pro American. They are pro American values, they are pro Western values. They're not very, I mean, Iran is a very non religious country. They're all very faithful. They have faith in God, but they are not religion doesn't lead their day-to-day lives, so they're very pro-American, and all you see unfortunately on the news, it's what's being shown on these major news networks on Iranian nuclear power, Iranian clergies, and Iranian women in black, which is not what Iran is. They're very pro-America, pro-Western, pro-education, and very innovative.
Have you
And
seen that show? Have you seen that show? I mean, it puts a whole different perspective on Iran. It humanizes Iranians, the youth, Iranian intelligence, even. It's on Apple TV. It's called Tehran.
yes, yes, and that's part of it, but I mean there goes a lot more, and they're so innovative. Even though right now, for example, they've been suppressed for over 4 decades, you see how young women work so hard to become so good at some unusual sports so they can go out and be on an international stage to say that I'm not the woman in the burqa. I'm here to compete. um so there we have people in science, in sports, in every imaginable field, that they do their best to show that they're not what they are, being shown on TV basically.
You know, and what you're describing there, it really speaks to something that really kind of upset me when it happened, and still when I think about it, I try not to think about it too much. But what happened over in Afghanistan, all these women had opened businesses and were going to school and going to college, and not to mention we spent $1 trillion over there to make that happen, and then giving the country back to the Taliban. It really, and leaving the people that helped us over there.
um I this is a sore spot for me, because
Okay.
I was one of those people who helped those women build capacity for Afghan women to become reporters and storytellers, and I mentioned that in the book. And but I tell you one thing though, Taliban might be back, but Taliban cannot take over their education or their mindset. Although Taliban is back, but you still have a lot of people who are blogging, who are posting on social media, and you're talking to the world. Before US and NATO went to Afghanistan, that was not an option.
I understand that, and we have to look at the glasses half full. At least they've been introduced to bigger ideas, and yes, I understand that. But what upset me was looking at the strategic reports and the ones done by the military. It could have all been avoided with, I think, 2,500 soldiers rotating every 6 months in the Air Force base there that we gave up with all the equipment. Because, from my understanding and research, the Iranian military was great at doing the missions, which was the risky part. So we weren't doing the risky part. We were doing logistics. And that's what they weren't good at. And that's why they imploded once we were gone.
Yeah, and what was most upsetting for me actually was watching some of the newly sort of younger soldiers that were not very experienced. So because they told them it was supposed to be a humanitarian mission, but when then they went there, things got ugly. And I wish that we had more experienced soldiers. And I think we lost some really young souls because they had no idea what they were going to face. They thought they're just going, this is part of a humanitarian mission. So that was the most upsetting to me, because one of the Marines in California, like I went and saw his Instagram account, and his whole life he wanted to be a Marine, and then he graduated, became a Marine. This was his first like deployment, and then he dies, like, and it was so bad. That was the most upsetting part for me.
Well, and two, I mean, obviously your service is never wasted, but to see it backslide like that after so many people had given their lives to make that happen is very upsetting and frustrating as well.
I agree. I agree. And unfortunately, Afghanistan war has always been very political. So decisions were not made based on facts and ideas that were made based on political purposes. Even when I served under Obama's administration, civilian surge was a political issue. So they told us we had to be there by end of December in 2009. So they rushed us to make sure they had certain amount of numbers of people there. And I mentioned in my book, I was lucky because I had language skill. Somebody already selected me to serve in Ghazni, but there were a lot of people waiting at the embassy because they were told to be rushed there, but they didn't have assignments to go to.
Yeah.
They were sitting at the embassy.
Yeah, and like you said, a lot of things were rushed and stuff, and hopefully with our AI assisted technology, because AI is not meant to take the place of humans. It's not meant to take the place of elected officials, and anybody who's using AI to cut jobs is misusing it. They're inserting greed, which is the reason trickle down economics don't work, because greed's in capitalism. You got to take greed out of capitalism. But but anybody who's using it to try to cut jobs, it's supposed to enhance humans, be the best assistant, be the best enhancement, make us the best that we are. So hopefully we're going to be able to use this technology. We're working with municipalities right now in Louisiana with a pilot program, but we're hoping to be able to use that to try to take some of the emotion out of these political decisions and have a layer in there, not the final layer. The final layer is human review and voting and all that, because that's what they're there for. But at least put in a safety layer where it takes emotions out, because you can't think clearly if your mind's clouded with emotions, and our politicians are no different.
That's right. And everyone has to use AI responsibly, so we
Mm-hmm.
don't we don't have more disinformation in this world.
Absolutely. There's a lot of disinformation out there. So I got another question for you. You ready?
Yes.
Okay. After 9/11, you chose to serve as a civilian public diplomacy officer in Afghanistan. What motivated that decision, and what did service look like on the ground?
Um it was probably it was truly an honor to be able to be a soldier, like to live and serve like a soldier but without a uniform. That's why I gave the name Serving Without a Uniform. At the point where I wanted to become a soldier, it was, I was in my late 30s, and it was too late to be a soldier, but I wanted to go and serve, and this was my chance to serve. It was not easy. It was not easy being a civilian, in Ghazni, in eastern Afghanistan, which you're probably familiar. It was a very kinetic place, eastern Afghanistan. Um, and it was hard being a woman, and it was hard dealing with so many different cultures of military, Marines, Army, Navy, National Guard. Then we had all the civilian forces, USAID. But it was an honor. It was an honor to serve next to some of the most elite, not in just skills, but in the heart, in their faith in God, in their love for country. And I feel so honored to have been able to serve and known the kind of people, and they brought me back alive. I'm forever grateful for all of them.
Absolutely. And you almost kind of touched down a little bit on this next question with what you said just a minute ago. So, your book emphasizes that not all service requires a uniform. Why is it important for Americans to recognize journalism, diplomacy, and civic engagement as forms of national defense?
I think one of the biggest contribution any citizen can make is to clear this disinformation. Because when I started as a reporter traveling abroad and seeing how people so have these anti-American sentiment, but they're not very they're not aware of what's going on. So even in Afghanistan, I remember I was holding media courses, and there was this guy. When our guys, our military, we were on a mission, so they were guarding this classroom. they were just so mean. And I'm like, why are you so mean? And why are you so upset? He goes, well, I've been told they're here to take our faith. I'm like, no, our guys are huge in faith. Did you know our guys pray before they eat and they go to bed? He goes, are you serious? So, and then he cracked a smile. So those were some of the simple things I thought had the most impact by just having normal conversations with ordinary Afghans who were told to hate America all their lives. But then you could see once they started getting to know some of our guys, they would come and hug them. They bring them gifts and rugs, and they wanted to bring their family and introduce it to our guys. And I knew that how education evolved them into a different person as far as how they perceive the Americans. So I think by showing the true selves, American selves, and leading by example, I think that's a form of service.
Absolutely, absolutely. So many Americans feel disconnected, frustrated, or distrustful of institutions. From your perspective, what would you say to citizens who feel like their country no longer represents them?
That's a very valid question and concern. And that's why it's more important for ordinary citizens like you and I get involved, because only people can change this. And I'm at fault too, because I see something that's being told on the news, or a leader that I don't agree with, or the bill that's being introduced, and I isolate myself. Then I have to remind myself, no, actually, this is when you get involved. Use that anger as an energy. I mean, look at the Tea Party. Tea Party was not even registered as it was just a group of concerned citizens who thought they weren't being represented. So I think it's using the power of people and getting more involved. And people say your voice doesn't matter. It does matter. I mean, look at Charlie Kirk. He was only one voice. Yeah, he had an organization, but it was one person. So yes, you can make a difference. And I think people have to realize every person has a power.
And you're speaking right to something that we're doing right now. So I don't know if you're familiar, but we've designed some AI software where you can take a idea to fix a problem, put it in. It's got guardrails set, different data parameters, and it will spit you out a policy packet which includes a sponsor-ready House bill that's nonpartisan and grounded in the Constitution, ready for the Senate and House floor to go into law. So real people can solve real problems in real time. And I have two examples of that are beautiful examples, because I actually developed the software for our flagship legislation. I didn't intend for anything other than our Constitutional Quality Control Board, and I developed software. So then I was doing a series on the podcast called Fixing America. I started the first one, had on one of America's thought leaders who developed political giants of thought audiobooks back in 1985. And we were supposed to talk about this one thing, and we ended up talking about healthcare and his idea how to fix it. Then he sends me an email afterwards with data points. So I plug them in to my policy producer, and it spits out the healthcare reform bill that's being pushed in D.C. right now. Then, so real people solving real problems in real time. Like you said, we can solve our own problems because we're living the problems right now. Um, and so, I mean, and this is the first time that I've said it on air. I'm sure I'll say it more, but it is a beautiful story. So, my wife, we're getting ready to well, she's going to be my wife in 2 months. We're getting ready to get married. She had to get a little teeny cover up tattoo. So, we went to do it for her birthday, and she found this girl that was supposed to do good flowers and vines and stuff on a hand stuff. And so we go in, and the girl's working on her. She's got a foreign accent. And my wife says, where are you from? She says Venezuela, and she says, during the conversation, we find out that she came over when she was 17. She came to visit her brother, and when she was going back, somebody stole her papers in the airport. So she had two choices. One, go back to her country and never come back to see her brother. Two, stay with her brother, file for asylum, and never go back and see her parents. And I said, This is broken. And this is part of this misinformation from the media where all these people are saying, well, immigrants that have been here for 20 years should have gotten their citizenship. This is broken. Obviously, if they have a business and they're not a citizen, if there's a reason they couldn't get their citizenship. So what do? I pull out my phone that's got my software on it. I said, let's see how to fix this. And we come up with the only fix that we're going to be pushing next year during the midterms to fix this immigration problem. It's on our website. It's on the AI enhanced legislation page when it was created, when they were proposed to Congress, that sort of thing. And I just think that's a beautiful story because real people solving real problems in real times. How many politicians would go and talk to a tattoo artist, an illegal immigrant, and then real time come up with a bipartisan fix for it that far ascends party politics?
Oh, absolutely. So that's why people's presence is it's really really important. And if you remember, President Trump mentioned the waitress who came and talked about, hey, don't tax our tips. And then he's like, I had no idea that was going on. It was her idea that I got that I wanted to push. And that's the beauty of being in touch. And unfortunately, when people get elected to the office, whether you're, a congressman that nobody knows or some, senator or speaker, they get shelled by these people who think they own them. But they don't understand we're the one who's paying for their salary. So I am paying for the congressional member in my district for their salary, and then I can't even get a Capitol Hill tour. For example, my family,
Well,
was visiting DC, and they live in California, and I reached out to their district congressional member. But luckily, because I worked at the gallery, I had some buddies of mine because I wanted my nephew who was starting to eighth grade and learn about U.S. history to get a tour of Capitol Hill. But that's why it's frustrating because look, as taxpayers, they can't even get a tour right now. You have to wait for months. Why do citizens have to wait? And people who don't really represent the values lead all the ideas and get all the platform. I just don't understand. And if you say anything against it, then you're the bad person.
well, that's why it's a very important part of what we got going on to have that DC location educator, advocator, and all that stuff because it's about putting in the sweat equity and showing up. He goes to Capitol Hill 2 to 3 times a week, meeting with people, getting trying to get these sponsors and that kind of stuff, and it is tedious. And so one of the main things was, well, for years, companies and special interest groups have had people in DC full time. Well, why can't we, the people, have some people in the DC full time?
I agree. I agree. And I don't know if you noticed that or not. I think there's a lot of study on this. Whoever you really disagree with and dislike, if you meet them in person, you are less likely to dislike and disagree, and you at least see eye to eye. I never forget this story. Actually, when a Marine met President Obama, so he faced him, and the Marine said, hey, I disagree with everything you say and every policy that you make. But you know what? You and I share something in common. We're both great dads. So I love that example that you can completely disagree on every political way with someone, but still find a common ground, being a good father. And that's what I mentioned in my book. Whether you're in Paris or Palestine, we all want the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone wants a good life for their kids, safe home, and a good future. So
Well, the common ground. That's what we're trying to give to people and politicians again is to start at the Constitution and use that as a moral compass and common ground to start at, and because you do have to have some kind of common ground to have a meaningful debate. You gotta meet in the middle somewhere.
I agree. I agree, and it's good to have a form to abide by, and but we also need people who can interpret the Constitution well, because nowadays everybody has their own way of wanting to interpret the Constitution.
This is true. This is true. So, what does patriotism mean to you today, and how can Americans practice it in their daily lives without hatred, division, or blind loyalty?
I think just being more educated and don't limit yourself to your Facebook and Instagram friends and their posts, because over time you start like thinking like them. And when people talk about, for example, diversity in our communities, I really don't like the word I mean, I'm a minority, a triple minority, but I think we should have diversity of ideas, not colors, um, and include different, look at different perspectives. See, I can't sit here and say all people, in Palestine are Hamas. No, like Hamas, it's a group that's bad. Or I can't say, you know, um, some horrible people in America. That does not represent us. So you have to be more critical thinkers and educate more. Read the whole thing. Don't read the headline. That's why I really stop. Like, for the most part, I read transcripts of what happens in a congressional hearing, or I watch a lot of C-SPAN. My mom jokes with me and goes, "Let's you watch old men all day." Like, on the I'm like, you want to get the whole story. I don't want to get a headline. So just
Yeah,
be more
absolutely.
educated. And I think patriotism means being a responsible citizen on how you consume information.
Absolutely, part of phase one for our for our initial funding and rollout, we're actually in the process of building a streaming news channel called Truth Matters News, and it'll be on Roku, Samsung, and all that, and everything will be reported fact based through a constitutional lens. So people can just give me the facts, let me make my own decision. There'll be some shows where there'll be, debating something, one like our classrooms, like the classrooms, with our partner, the American Institute for Civic Leadership. But, the news itself, the news feed itself, it is not going to be spun. It is going to be fact based, as unbiased as possible.
I agree. That's fantastic.
Cool, cool. Well, I really want to thank you so much for your service, your courage, and your commitment to truth and freedom. Before I close up the show, is there anything that we missed or anything that you want to tell the audience?
No, I'm just so grateful, and again, I feel a lot of gratitude to have come here, been here legally, and been able to live the life that I live, and been able to give back to America. And I hope I continue to serve America in meaningful ways, locally, regionally, nationally, and cherish every day. And I mentioned that in my book, Cherish Your Freedom. The freedom that you see every day, it's I see every day it's being not being appreciated. I mean, there are so many people in this world who who'd love to have what we have. So I urge you to embrace your calling and remember the sacrifices made by those who came before us. Every action, every choice counts. Together, let us safeguard the freedom we cherish and empower one another to pursue our dreams.
I'm telling you, your story is a powerful reminder that America is worth defending and that service comes in many forms. To our listeners, this conversation reflects what the Patriot Party movement stands for: truth over narrative, gratitude over entitlement, and putting America first through informed, principled citizenship. If you believe in re-empowering we the people, share this episode, stay engaged, and keep asking hard questions, because freedom depends on it.